How do you mean to tame the monster of corruption?
That's a big elephant in the room. But corruption can be tamed. Checks and balances, separation of powers, as I said earlier.
We have them. We have them already.
We don't.
They are not working.
We don't. If you have the president appointing the chief justice, if you have the president appointing the, the IGP, the president appointing everybody, you don't tell me you have appointing parliamentarians to be ministers. You're not telling me you have checks and balances.
He is doing that, and for now it's all been he's, but he is doing that based on the Constitution. That's what the Constitution mandates.
Absolutely. So we'll come back to that. But before we change the Constitution, there has to be selflessness in our leadership to give power and room to various institutions to function on their own, and which we don't have now. But the Constitution will come to it, but we need to...
Let's go to it because time is limited, yeah. But let's go to it. What will you do with the Constitution?
It needs to be reviewed.
It needs to be reviewed.
A lot needs to change in the
Have you read the contents of the 2010 Constitutional Review Commission's work? Have you read it?
I haven't read it into detail, but I have a fair idea exactly what they're proposing.
Do you subscribe to some of those changes?
I subscribe to most of them.
Like which ones?
Like talking about separating the, the president from electing the chief justices, what I just said. Article 71.
Office holders.
Office holders being scrapped. Because again, single spine for other people, Article 71, that's the first form of discrimination anyway, which you can talk about. So all those ones I think is very important. I think the Council of State needs to be scrapped.
Council of State ought to be scrapped.
Yep, they have to have a second chamber where we put ex-professionals, ex-IGPs, ex-military commanders, paramount chiefs and so forth to be there to make decisions and advising government. So there's a lot that we need to review as far as the Constitution is concerned. And I think we've started by having these lectures, but you need to move from the drawing board into action. And this is what we bring on the table as a government.
Let's talk about agriculture. You've already spoken about mechanizing agriculture and all of that. Easier said than done. You go to other parts of the world, Brazil and other places, the US, mechanized agriculture is the way to go. If you look at the population involved in agriculture versus what they produce, the quotient of it, and what it brings to America's GDP, you would see that we're practically joking. How are you going to implement that? We've had planting for food and jobs, rearing for food and jobs. It's amounted to nothing.
Let's move from the slogans to real action. What is the challenge here? We have issues with land tenure system and land ownerships. Government needs to solve that problem. There has to be deliberate policies to create enabling environment for private sector to drive this industry. We can't do everything as a government. All the government requires is to be able to create the enabling environment. If there are land tenure issues, if there are land ownership issues, today this guy owns it, after 6 months a ruling is given to another person, and that doesn't give comfort to investors, government to take responsibility on that. Secondly, another problem, financing, funding. How do we get funding? We're not attracting funding from local banks because banks are comfortable buying government treasury bills, and because government is borrowing and giving them trusted or guaranteed interest, so they're comfortable going in that. How do you resolve that? Government needs to stop competing with the private sector. External borrowing. Any external interest into the market would make sure that there's technology. Do we have the technology? No. Who has the technology? Israel. So you go to Israel, speak to the experts, let them partner with locals, and then immediately you have access to funding that can move into the mechanized farming. So
but you do know that, especially in terms of agriculture, I do not know how much of this you're aware of, but Ghana has partnered Israel for a long time on tech and especially agriculture. We have people who go study there. Are you aware of that?
Yes, but going to study there...
I'm just citing that as an example. Yeah, there's more that goes on.
There's a different level I'm talking about here. I'm talking about people or business people in Israel seeing the potential in the investing their technology with locals here. At the moment, it's government and sponsorship relationship. We need to move from there to private sector driven, where the components that attract investors to come into the country are there. So they see that if I bring my technology to join A, who has 15 acres of land, I have access to X amount of money to grow my maize or rice. These are the sort of things I'm talking about. Practical things, not just these theoretical aspect or written contrast relationship that has not yielded anything. Let's move into the grants of it. Let's get the real action being taken. Somebody has to sit in Israel and say, wow, I have, like what they did in Zimbabwe and elsewhere. The farmers have to sit there and say, look, the opportunity is there. Let me go for it. It's not like government going to lure them or convince anybody, but we put the various components that attract people regardless of where they are to bring their technology to match up with the local expertise and get foreign funding to be able to move it to mechanized farming. I have a whole blueprint of that that would be given into detail on our during of our policies.
Tell me, there's the scourge of Galamsey. It's destroying our natural resources, land resources, water resources, among others. I want to brief focus on the natural resources of Ghana. You can start from Galamsey, but I also want you to share with us, how are you going to basically weaponize the things that we have in the interest of Ghana? We have gold. It's not serving our purpose. In fact, sometimes you will see that we are claiming we've exported X amount of gold in a year. Other entities across the world tell us that actually you've sent more to other places. We don't know what happens with those. Now we've had oil, now there's lithium. What is your projection on these matters? Okay,
so let me talk about Galamsey. The situation in Galamsey is very pathetic as to why a nation like ours can't solve a problem endemic as this is serious. Look, if we destroy our water bodies, we cannot afford not to have water in our country. But we still can't solve this problem. Are we saying that if we get attacked by a neighbor, we cannot resolve the issue? Clearly, this is what we are saying. We have people in government who are doing this and at the same time saying they are solving the problem. Let's address the issue head on and make sure that the truth is laid on the table. The issue with Galamsey has to do with leadership. Our leadership needs to be up and doing and end this and end it. Because we can't just keep talking about we have Galamsey and it's not been. Look, the reason why it's going on is because our leadership are not that serious to address it, or they are not really holding the, hitting the nail while supposed to.
Which do you think it is?
I think it's people in government that are doing it. Parliamentarians, ministers, people who are supporting parties are having that as a, and this is what goes back to what I was saying, that when people's loyalty is to a political party as to a nation, these are the challenges that you face. And our system of governance that we're bringing in will naturally take care of this. But I'm hoping, and I'm saying to this, that our government, that solving that Galamsey issue falls right at their doorstep. They have no excuse to give that to hit the nail where it's supposed to be and go out there and solve the problem, because they know exactly who are involved in mining around these water bodies. Now, talking about our natural resources. Again, if you remember, I made a statement earlier that our system of governance, our structure of economy, everything is based on a colonial model which has been restructured. As to why we're sitting here 2003, 2004, and we are taking 2024, yeah. We're taking royalties in our minerals. It's where they are so creative, innovative way of raising money to do it on our own. It's unbelievable.
Share some of those with us.
What I'm saying is, when I get the opportunity, every mineral, every find would be 100% owned by Ghana. 100%, not 10%, not 50%.
How are you going to execute that? Especially when you're considering that a lot of the time why we lose these gargantuan sums of money has to do with the fact that when it comes to exploration, when it comes to funding the project from ground up, we don't have the resources. So we let these companies come in with high risk and, of course, with high gain. And that is why we keep being on the losing end. You don't have the money. How are you going to work it out?
We don't have the money, but we have the assets. So you set up a wholly owned asset company, then you have the, operating company. The operating company would be paid a fee, and the fee would be the experts that would bring in their technology, the experts that would bring in their funding, and they put into that port from day one. You become, for instance, in an oil, day one, you become the ExxonMobil. Let me tell you, the Chevrons, the ExxonMobil, the Shells, the guys that you see around, are not necessarily working 24/7 for them. They are working on contracts. Today, you see them in a Chevron jacket. Tomorrow, they are wearing ExxonMobil's jacket because they've gotten the contract. We can do the same. So once the investor sees you have high-skilled labor, the experts are on the table, similar to what I was talking to you about the mechanized farming, you attract the funding. So the EXCO, the production company or the operating company, is where these guys come and farm in. And then you pay them a fee. A similar concept was done in Norway after the Second World War when they found the oil. I mean, they took the British, they told the Americans, You have the technology, you have the money, we don't have it. But we have the oil, it's ours, we know it's there. So what we are saying is train and develop our people, we will take care of our own resources. Years down the line, Norway is not just exporting the products, they are exporting technology. Everywhere in the world where you are seeing experts in the oil field, they are Norwegians. It took a transformative leader, a leader that saw beyond, that brought a policy that benefits his people. We can do the same in our country. What has gone down to our people after how many years that we've spent mining gold in our country? If a Ghanaian geologist writes a competence report on any gold find and you take it to a stock exchange anywhere in the world, they will chuck in a bin, they will shred it because they know they don't have the skill, the know-how. How long are we going to continue this way? We have so many young people coming through that needs to be employed. We need to create opportunities for them, and that requires us taking radical decisions, being selfless in our approach, and making sure that Ghanaians benefit from our resources.